This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
The biggest icon in podcasting.
Welcome in, everybody, to this week's edition of the DocNJock Wrestling Podcast. I'm your host, Adam the Jock Straczynski. On today's show, congrats to this AEW couple. Lots of drama coming out of AEW and WWE's reaction. And we could have a major return to this women's lineup starting tonight with the Saturday night main event. Helping me break it all down, sort it all out, go through what the happenings are in WWE, what the happenings are in AEW. He's the one. He's the only. He is the Jock, John Macaroon. What's up, cuz?
Cuz it's Saturday night's main event, and WWE teased it. I haven't marked out too much this year in wrestling. Maybe a handful of times, I can count on one hand, a moment where I marked out. But I think based on what they're teasing, and we'll talk about it maybe a little bit later, oh my God, the moment that I think everybody really wanted to see when Cody Rhodes won the WWE title. I hope it happens. Saturday night's main event looks to be a great card. It was a great week of wrestling. You had TNA with a show that had impact. You had real good storyline stuff going on with WWE, promos galore. Drew McIntyre did the whole shoot work thing on a radio appearance. It is crazy how much good stuff went on this week. What are we hitting first?
You know, you brought up TNA, and I seen that Tessa Blanchard has come back to TNA, and I just kind of want to get your thoughts on that. Tessa Blanchard was at one point supposed to be the woman who was supposed to really take over women's wrestling. She had a nice run in TNA, and then things kind of went a little sideways, and they basically told her, you got to go. And now they bring her back. She looks like she's in fantastic shape. She looks great. What are your thoughts of Tessa Blanchard coming back?
Yeah, it's interesting because there was, the stuff that kind of got revealed regarding her relationships with wrestlers and things that were going on. And I just said that when people started talking about it online, and then I checked it out, I think she's, like I said, she's a great name. I do think that the lineage that she has, being Tully Blanchard's daughter, there was talk at times maybe potentially that she could do bigger things. But look, in the end, I do think that people can atone for mistakes. You hope that the locker room will accept her, but the internet wrestling community is not happy. But I don't know if it's going to cost TNA a lot of fans because they're just trying to gain traction. They have a nice roster. They're looking for talent, and I do think that she makes an impact. And there's a good chance that her feud with Jordynne Grace can also now be elevated too based on their history and what's been going on. So I think it's a good move overall. Her look is great. I do think that she's an addition to a company, but we'll see how the fans react just based on the stuff that's happened in the past. And look, I thought that the show that they just had was pretty good. I think Final Resolution, I thought Nick Nemeth had a good performance against AJ Francis. You had a lot of good matches. Frankie Kazarian keeps doing his thing. So Impact keeps moving forward in what they're doing, and it's just it's gaining traction. And AJ Styles was reportedly backstage in Atlanta at the center there where they held the show. So, look, TNA is continuing to make a lot of noise and traction, and I do think that they're poised to kick off 2025 strong because Joe Hendry got an opportunity after winning the number one contenders match. He'll fight Nick Nemeth again at the next pay-per-view. It has to be where I think it's Genesis in Dallas. You have to give the belt to Joe Hendry. If he doesn't start the year with the belt, might have to take a little hiatus from TNA because I gave him a 1 month payment, canceled it. But after seeing Bound for Glory, I paid the $10 to watch it for a couple of weeks. It's been good. So I gave my little investment for the work that they did this year. They earned my $10.
All right, nice. It'll be interesting to see what happens as we kind of move forward with Tessa Blanchard. Like you said, internet wrestling community a little bit upset, but again, she's a fantastic wrestler. It just seemed like she had the personality of a porcupine or a cactus. So we'll see what happens. Maybe she can mend fences. You know, everybody deserves a second chance, right? So this could be hers. We'll keep an eye on it. We'll watch it going forward. Like you said, TNA always doing a lot of great stuff. a lot of great stuff with WWE this week. This is one of the first times in a long time where we put a rundown together, and we've got a ton of material to get to. This looks like, on paper, looks like it's going to be a very, very long show. So let's jump right into WWE, and let's try to hit all this stuff out of the park because there's, like I said, a lot to cover. I wanted to get your thoughts on Damien Priest being added to the Gunther Finn Balor match that's taking place tonight on Saturday's main event. I was hoping we could kind of get Damien Priest away from Finn Balor, away from Judgment Day. Doesn't look like that's going to be the case. Gunther comes down this week to cut a promo in the ring, interrupted by Finn. Next thing you know, Damien Priest is running down. And then next thing you know, the numbers game takes over, and Judgment Day is beating up Gunther and Damien Priest. Later on, you have Finn in the back. And Finn this is a really interesting story with Finn. I'm liking what we're doing with Finn. He's gone from being the guy who's, what are you talking about? You're not the leader of Judgment Day. There are no leaders in Judgment Day, to I'm the leader in Judgment Day. Like he's had this complete role reversal, and he's had this almost inflated ego kind of take over Judgment Day. And he will probably be the downfall of the Judgment Day when it's all said and done. And I've kind of liked this story arc that we've had for him. But I want to get some separation between Damien Priest and himself. Gunther and Finn Balor, I think, could be really, really good and be awesome to watch. And I thought Gunther had a great line about how Finn Balor was only good enough for one night when he won the Universal Championship because he had to relinquish it the following night because he had that separated shoulder after fighting Seth Rollins. But we keep finding ways to introduce Damien Priest back into a Finn Balor story, or Finn Balor back into a Damien Priest story. I just want these two separated, and my hope is this is the last time we see these guys wrestle for a while. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, look, it makes sense. Their stories have intertwined. There's reason, to believe that, the match itself could really be good in the way in which it could be told with, Damien Priest having feud with both. And I just think that it should be the culmination. So we'll see what happens as a result of the match. I expect it to be a really good one. But the crazy part is that, you can make a legit argument for all three kind of really having an opportunity to take advantage of a win. So it's really interesting because, the whole Judgment Day, it just is a little bit unusual with their story because it was started by Edge and he's not there anymore. So I don't know. I think the debate we'll have maybe down the road is, did the Judgment Day really help Damien Priest or did it hinder him? Because I think he was on the trajectory of being a star. I do think that him working with Rhea Ripley probably was the best thing in this whole situation because she kind of really elevated the whole crew. But I thought clearly Dominic Mysterio got the benefit of it. JD, I don't know if he's done enough to kind of get himself over. He's obviously been a champion now with the tag teams, but I just think that the Judgment Day as a whole, it feels like it could have been better. It feels like it could have done more, but it did elevate a couple guys, so it'll be interesting to see how it plays out in the future. But look, Gunther's the man. I love to see this match, but I think the one thing that you can surmise is that Finn Balor took a step back being in this group, and I didn't expect that. I think that he's a true leader, a star, and I just think the last 3 years have been unusual for a character that really is main event, especially with the Demon character, one of the biggest things in wrestling, and you put it on the shelf for him to be part of a group, and you hope now that he gets his next push to have an opportunity, because the Judgment Day didn't do him anything that was really worthwhile other than highlight him a little bit more in regards to working with others, So I think that Finn Balor can do bigger things. Like, let's be real, Finn Balor, Cody Rhodes sounds good. Finn Balor working, Shinsuke would be interesting as well, or world title opportunities. Him being tag champ just doesn't seem like it suits his talents.
Yeah, I mean, if AJ Styles could ever come back, cause I don't know what the status of his foot is right now. I know that it was bad when it happened, and it sounded like it was going to be a long time rehabbing. But if Finn Balor could come back, him and AJ Styles could have a fantastic match. Him and AJ Styles with Gallows and Anderson would be a cool looking group if you were to put that back together, almost Bullet Club-esque, So I think there's a lot you can do with Finn Balor. I really do feel like WWE Vince McMahon specifically, very high on Finn Balor. Finn Balor goes out, has a hell of a match against Seth Rollins, wins the Universal Championship. In the match, takes an awkward buckle bomb from Seth Rollins, which Seth Rollins has hurt a lot of people with that move. And Finn gets injured, separates his shoulder and tears a labrum. And next thing you know, he's on the shelf for a couple weeks, a couple months. When he comes back, it's like Vince soured on him. Vince got cold. Like, he gave him a shot, and Finn gets hurt because things happen, and then he's never been able to regain that momentum. You put him in Judgment Day, and you're right. He's helped elevate a lot of guys. Like, Rhea Ripley was going to be a star, but I think Rhea Ripley is a bigger star because she got to work with Finn Balor. Damien Priest, I feel like he could have been a star. It really depended on what happened with him. I think he is now a star because he got to work with Finn Balor. JD McDonough, I feel like, is a guy who would have came up to this roster, would have got lost. I feel like you know who JD McDonough is because of working with Finn Balor. I think Dominic Mysterio is in a better spot from working with Finn Balor. So I think these guys are in better spots for working with Finn Balor. Finn Balor needs to get put in a better spot, and he needs to start getting a better run and needs to get a little bit of a push because he is a main event guy. And right now he's being utilized more as a mid-card guy and a guy to help boost other people. And we talked about this a couple weeks ago. We said Finn Balor's supposed to be getting a bit of a push. So hopefully that push comes, and hopefully this is the jump off for it. And hopefully we can get Damien Priest and Finn Balor a little separation from each other so Finn can really go do some of his own stuff. Some other stuff that came out of Monday Night Raw. I absolutely loved Seth Rollins' promo. I thought Seth Rollins' promo was awesome. It was a bit of a work shoot. It was really nice to see some of the real life stuff incorporated into Seth's promo when talking about CM Punk. The big thing I took away from it, though, is Seth is a face. CM Punk is coming back as a face, but the fans were chanting for CM Punk and at times booing Seth Rollins in this very real life promo, which I absolutely loved and adored. I wanted to get your thoughts on the promo, and what do you think about Seth Rollins being the heel in a match against CM Punk because the fans dictate that?
Yeah, it is natural the way, I think Seth Rollins can naturally adapt to being a face or a heel, right? He's got the character that can be snotty and arrogant and violent, and he's also got the charisma to be unique and special and a fan favorite. So, look, in the end, I just think it's a match that's going to draw heat. It's going to be great for Netflix. I think the rumor is it's going to be one of the matches that showcased on the first episode, which is great. So whatever happens, the realism in this matchup, what stinks is that just based on kind of the way in which this is going, you're building up CM Punk to be a mega attraction. Like, you have to kind of build up CM Punk to be a world champion caliber individual. It's kind of leading me to believe that the person that's going to defeat Gunther is going to be CM Punk at this point, whether you like it or you don't, just based on the fact that CM Punk now has a favor from Paul Heyman. He's kind of been really popular. He's done everything that the company's asked. His dream is, I'm sure he said, look, Paul, I'm old as F. You know what I mean? And I just want my dream to main event WrestleMania. And so night one WrestleMania sounds good, right? CM Punk Gunther, if you can sell it, if you can do it, and then you have CM Punk win. And I think that that's something that could potentially be a WrestleMania situation. But you got to have notable wins. A nice feud with Seth Rollins probably is something that's going to be very much valuable to the company. And I'm curious because I do think that Seth Rollins is somebody that should be 1A in the company, but there's some bigger stars, and he's kind of like 2A and 2B at the moment. So I'm curious to see if Seth Rollins ever gets a win on CM Punk.
Yeah, I think this too, because I'm not sure where we're going with Roman Reigns and the CM Punk and the favor. I'm not sure where we're going with all of that, but I could see this being that middle feud to kind of bridge the gap for CM Punk, Roman Reigns. If they're planning that for WrestleMania, I could see you getting 3 quick matches between CM Punk and Seth Rollins because the 3-match thing is kind of WWE's formula. I could see them kind of getting those. So with that being said, Seth would get a win somewhere, I could see. But I do feel like this is kind of the bridge feud. I feel like this feud really could be its own thing, but it sounds like promises were made to CM Punk. Sounds like he was told he's going to get his WrestleMania main event. So if that's the case, I don't think it's going to be against Seth Rollins, even though I think these two could have a tear the house down feud and a tear the house down wrestling match. It'll be fun to see how Seth Rollins evolves in this feud, in this build up, in this lead to whatever this match is going to be with them. Because at this point, CM Punk is playing this almost arrogant wrestler where he's like, Seth Rollins is beneath me. Like, I don't even think of this guy. Obviously, I live in his head, though. And Seth is like, I don't want you here. You shouldn't be here. You were a cancer everywhere you've been. We don't need a cancer here. This place is fine just the way it is. So they have these roles, but it doesn't seem to be what the fans want. So I think there's going to be an evolution of both of these characters as we kind of work our way through this, because CM Punk, almost like I said, taking that arrogant heel role, while Seth Rollins is playing more the WWE protector. And it seems like the fans kind of want them to be flip-flopped a little bit. So fun to watch what we're going to get. I don't think this is going to be a very long feud. I feel like this is going to be a very short feud, because this is going to be the byway to get CM Punk to wherever he's going next, and that might be with Roman Reigns. We'll have to wait and see. I do want to get your reaction to the New Day. New Day walked in. They did a very good job of this. New Day walks into the building. They show a bit of a skit in the back, a vignette, and everybody ignored New Day. Everybody was sad and displeased with New Day, and this was kind of the theme throughout the evening. At one point, Cody Rhodes comes out of Adam Pearce's office, and New Day stop in front of him. They go to give him some daps and a high five, and Cody just stands there sullen, shakes his head, and he's got some words for Xavier, because they went to high school together. And New Day was just kind of like, you know what? Forget all these people. They go out to the ring, and the fan reaction was absolutely insane. These guys couldn't get through their promo. They were drowned out by the crowd. Like, they were booed out of the ring. I want to know, was it real or was it pumped in? WWE has been, at this point, transparent about pumping in boos for Dominic Mysterio. Do you think this was a real-life fan reaction, or do you think this heat that they got, because there's some heat here, was amped up with WWE pumping in some crowd noise? Because I want to believe it was real.
No, it was nuclear.
But I think it was pumped in.
Yeah, probably a combination of both. I mean, the way in which they did it is psychologically the way in which you draw heat. Like, turning on Big E is terrible. Like, Big E, how do you turn on a guy that had neck surgery? How do you turn on a guy that said, I want to help you? And I just thought that it was perfect. That's how you get nuclear heat. This is great. And there's something there. And now the New Day has to do a good job of acting like heels, and I think they will. This is great. This is one of those deals where maybe WWE lucked into something where they said, yeah, it's going to be good, but they didn't know it could be nuclear. Nuclear heat draws money.
Yeah, and look, it sounds like their first match is going to be on the debut of Raw's Netflix on January 6th. It is one of those things where I think for a long time we needed to refresh the New Day. This is a nice coat of paint in an old room of an old house that really brightens it up a little bit. And fans seem to be really, really upset with the New Day and what they did to Big E. My hope is Big E can come back and he can right some of these wrongs. But this was really, really fun. This was awesome to see. I do think you're right. I think it was probably a mix of both. I really wanted it to be real, though. But WWE is very good with pumping in that crowd noise. These guys were completely drowned out and frustrated at one point because they could not get through their promo. So I think that kind of adds to all of it and makes it feel that much more real. And I think it just adds another layer to what has been a very, very good story. Switching gears to SmackDown. Chelsea Green and Meacham advance in the finals for the Women's U.S. Championship. Whoever the winner is going to be crowned tonight at Saturday night's main event. I said early on, I felt like Chelsea Green was the pick. If you had to put money on it, you should put all your money on Chelsea Green. I still believe that. I think this was the right call, going Meacham, Chelsea Green. You also had an option of Bayley, and you had Tiffany Stratton, who also could have been in there. I think you could have made the argument for Tiffany Stratton because I feel like Tiffany Stratton is a star that is on the rise. But I feel like if you got to heel Chelsea Green and you've got a face in Meacham, I think it makes for an easier story. I like the call of going Meacham over Tiffany Stratton. Do you think this was the right call, or should they have replaced Meacham with Tiffany Stratton, and should Chelsea Green have been replaced with Bayley?
Oh, I can make the argument for Tiffany Stratton. She's big, but I think the matchup itself could have its own. I think they probably figured the match in and of itself could have its own creativity. So I'm okay with it. I think Tiffany Stratton's on the cusp. I think 2025 is her year, and 2024 is the learning year where, she kind of is in that spot where she gets a lot of the attention, gets a lot of focus, promos, all that, and 25 is where the wins come in the ring. So I'm okay with it as long as the result at the end is Chelsea Green being the inaugural U.S. Women's Champion.
Agree with you 110%. The other big thing that came out of SmackDown was Naomi was basically gifted a spot as Jade's fill-in to be the new tag team partner for Bianca. There's this backstage scene where you've got Nick Aldis basically running down Drew McIntyre for attacking Jimmy Uso, who came out and opened the show and cut a promo. Bianca and Naomi run up on him and like, hey, is this a good time to talk? Nick Aldis sends Drew McIntyre into his office and says, stay there, I'll be there in a minute. And Jade's like, hey, so like, what are we doing? What's going on with, or Bianca's like, hey, what's going on with Jade? And Nick Aldis is like, look, you're going to have to relinquish your title. And she's like, I've never had to give up anything, and I'm not going to give up anything now. And Naomi kind of cuts in and is like, what if I was to sub in and be the fill-in for Jade? And Nick is like, I'll run it up the flagpole, but I don't know if that's going to be the case. You guys got to be ready to fight next week. So it sounds like Bianca's not going to have to give up her tag title, which leads me to believe that the whole Jade Cargill thing might have actually just been a work and might not be real. What are your thoughts? Because there's a lot here. What are your thoughts on Naomi just being gifted the tag team spot, Bianca not having to relinquish the title, and where do you sit with Jade? Is it real? Is it fake? Because this is one of the first times in a long time I feel like WWE's kind of ran this cover where we're unsure. It could go either way with Jade. It could be a real life injury or it could be fake.
Yeah, it's good in regards to the intrigue, but I'm just like, man, Naomi stepping in, it's like one of those deals where you feel like the plan was lazy. I just don't think that that's the best plan.
I felt like this was a spot where they could have hit a hard reset for that tag team belt.
Yeah.
That tag team belt has been cursed. It has not been good. The women's tag belt has been absolute dog shit since they brought it in. And I don't know why, but it has not worked. I felt like this was a spot where you could have just like punched down on the reset button, held a tournament, because they love tournaments. We've got a lot of them going on right now. And you could have came out with a brand new tag team, and it could have worked out a lot better, and you could have gave it an actual legit push where you could have really reset the dynamic with that tag belt.
Right, and it's just one of those deals where the tag belts for the women and on Raw's men's is just really it's unfortunate. So I do think that there's a situation in which there's too many belts, and it's starting to showcase that now some of these belts are not getting the attention that they need, and it's one of those deals where now the women have a U.S. belt too. I think it's going to get more attention, so it dilutes the attention there. So to me, Bianca Belair has been brought down by being a champion. You never want a belt to do that. It should have been probably where Jade and Bianca split sooner, maybe when I had predicted it. But it's something they're running with. I'm not a fan of it. It's one of those rare misses in my mind with WWE with how they've handled the women. I think Naomi's coming back. I thought it was going to be better. I think that she came back for money. I thought she came back for a push, but it seems like she was comfortable coming right back in. They probably apologized and said, "Hey, we'll put you in some more spots." But her 2024 after the debut she had has been nothing. Like literally, it hasn't been that great. You've been overshadowed by a bunch of other women, and if you're Naomi, you might have did better staying in TNA. I think that she might have had one more year run where she could have came back and said, "I want to push. I want to be in the main event of WrestleMania. I want to be the gal." Instead, she's just one of the 10 girls that's in the mix.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it'll. We'll see what comes out of this. I don't know how long. I think you could do maybe an interesting story if Naomi fills in with Bianca and very quickly that tag team is taken off of them and put on somebody else. I feel like you could do an interesting story there. Maybe Bianca then blames Naomi and, Jade comes back and there's a feud there. There's stuff you can do, but I just feel like you said, Naomi just basically being able to fill in was just lazy booking, and it's for a title or a set of championships that WWE has shown that they don't care about, and that WWE has given little to no time or effort. And I felt like you had the opportunity to really try to recon some history here with these belts, and you're just allowing a really good opportunity maybe to pass you by. We'll see what comes of it. Still, with Triple H in charge, you have confidence that he's going to book things appropriately and do a really, really good job, because he has given us some of the best television that we've had in a while. It's just, I feel like this opportunity here could have been better, could have been bigger. However, it is what it is. Was there anything else from Monday Night Raw or for SmackDown that really caught your attention, that you really, really liked, and that really stuck out to you?
Well, I'll say this. I didn't have high hopes for Karrion Kross and The Miz, but I like what they're doing. It's intriguing. Very much so.
Great call.
Yes, it's
something I did want to bring up, and for some reason I did not put it on the rundown. I'm very sorry about that. What did you make of the Wyatt Six taking their first loss?
Yeah,
and it being Uncle Howdy who actually took the pin.
Yeah,
there's a group that you've been trying to build up for a while. You're trying to make them look deadly, and they take their first loss, to the New Testament,
yes,
which is a group that really has struggled to get over.
And so I think that's what it is that you kind of needed Karrion Kross, who I think is one of Triple H's guys. There's an affinity there. He likes to look. I think that maybe Triple H sees a little bit of himself in Karrion Kross. But look, I thought it was great. I thought that segment stood out on Monday Night Raw and definitely deserved a highlight. And it'll be interesting to see now what happens with the Wyatt Six moving forward after a loss. So I felt very much intrigued by what happened in that segment.
We'll see what takes place with the Wyatt Six, because I thought it was a little early to beat them and have that group basically pin the head of that group. I just, if you're going to have them take a loss, usually you would have one of the other guys take it. You wouldn't have Uncle Howdy take it, as he's the leader of the group, but interesting to see. We'll see what takes place. Let's transition and switch gears a little bit to AEW. Kyle Fletcher. He appears to be getting a monster push within the Continental Classic. Is he a guy who needs to win this tournament? Is he a guy who has to come out on the other end and be in that finals to really kind of help elevate him? This tournament is there, and it's supposed to be there to really help showcase a lot of wrestlers and to showcase a lot of guys and help get guys pushed up the card. Is he a guy who needs this push right now and needs to come out the victor in this championship?
I do. I think that's based on how a push would go, is that this is the guy positioned, but then do you have him, beat Ospreay again? It's like going to be fascinating to see, but it feels like when you have a tournament like this, maybe it can be like kind of that pseudo King of the Ring type thing where, you get a nice title and you get to kind of have a push with it. So we'll see how it progresses. The tournament's going okay, and I do think that Kyle Fletcher is the biggest beneficiary so far as somebody being highlighted in AEW right now.
Is the Money Showdown Kyle Fletcher versus Will Ospreay 2? And like you said, do you have Fletcher beat him again? Because I could see, look, this is one of Ospreay's guys. Ospreay is huge on Kyle Fletcher, and I think the reason Kyle Fletcher was brought into AEW was because Will Ospreay said you need to have him. Look, same thing kind of with Ricochet. Ricochet and Ospreay have a great relationship. Ospreay went to Tony Khan and was like, you need to bring him here, like whatever it takes, get it done. So this is this another spot where Ospreay's willing to go out and help elevate Kyle Fletcher one more time in a showdown for the Continental Classic Championship, where he'll now get the belt. This will be, I think, Kyle Fletcher's first belt in AEW, or was he Ring of Honor? He might have specifically AEW. I think this would be his first belt, his first singles belt for sure.
Yeah, to see it, I just don't see it. I think the great thing to do would be to have Will Ospreay win it, because obviously Fletcher got over the first time, but we'll see how it shakes out. But one thing it's guaranteed is the match should be very good. I hope that that's what they're building towards.
Yeah, it will be a great match. These guys have fantastic chemistry, and they're high flyers. Speaking of high flyers, Ricochet, guy who we just talked about a little bit, he also is getting a bit of a push in the C2. He's teasing a bit of a heel turn, though. If you follow his Twitter at all, he's been on Twitter a little bit, real active, and he's kind of been talking down to the fans a little bit. He ends up beating Brody King in his match, and I feel like Brody King is a guy that you really need to be elevating. Brody King is absolutely unreal, and I feel like maybe not quite getting the push he deserves. But what do you think about Ricochet doing a heel turn and maybe becoming a bad guy? Ricochet was always the good guy in WWE. I think he tried to be the bad guy once or twice. They tried to do a little something with him. It didn't really work. I don't think it connected. Really and truly, I think he's a little bit too soft-spoken, and he comes off a little bit too soft, maybe a little bit too refined to be a heel. So I think if you're going to be a heel, you're going to really have to transform it. It's going to have to be a little bit more maniacal. If that's what he wants to do, he can't just be your typical bad guy wrestling heel. He's got to add some layers to it. But what are your thoughts on him being that heel, and does he have to kind of amp it up and find a way to make it connect with the fan base?
Well, here's the problem. If he's going to become a heel, he's going to have to do some heel talking, and his promos haven't been that great lately. Like,
they're not good.
They're not great. They're not. I don't know how to describe it, but I know it's not hitting with me. And so maybe the idea is that, okay, the company realized, okay, maybe the face situation is going to be tough, but he's not over. So that sucks, because you brought in this character and you failed to get him further along as a face than what he came in as. So that's terrible.
What about this? Let me pose this to you. What about this? What do you think if, remember, he was given a card by MVP, and there was a point where he seemed quite interested in MVP's offer.
Yes.
What if he aligns himself with the Hurt Syndicate and allows basically MVP? MVP kind of runs the Hurt Syndicate, and he's a member of the Hurt Syndicate, but you have Ricochet and you have MVP doing a little bit more side stuff away from the group. Where Ricochet, you're trying to elevate Ricochet more as a singles competitor and less away from the group.
See, after doing 5,000 podcasts together, we're finishing each other's thoughts. My concluding thought was start his own faction, and I thought it'd be great with him, Kyle Fletcher, and Adam Cole. Like just the three guys that kind of are like the aerial assassins that can do some stuff, as well. The technical wrestler and Adam Cole that can be the talker. You got the two guys that can do stuff and just take over. You know what I mean? So I thought the same thing. Like on his own, Ricochet's not doing well, but I think maybe as part of a group that had a common goal of like, hey, we're here and we're not just nice guys anymore. We're here to take over and take take names. But the AEW, it's just wild that they have a character like Ricochet and they make an investment in him, and then he goes there and it's just kind of like the same thing going on that he did in the other company. So it's just one of those deals where you gotta find creative leaders in the back to help these guys. Basically, in the end, 2024 and 2023 for AEW kind of hit home the notion collectively that their character development can be refined. Like, okay, anybody can go out and say, hey, here's Drew McIntyre. Let's give him, $5 million a year. But WWE then brought him back from TNA and developed his character. They made him into a ferocious guy. And the reason why he's upset is he's feeling like he's been taken advantage of. Now he feels like the company's taken more from him than he's given it, or he's given the company more than the company's given him. They're doing a beautiful job of developing a character, which is, hey, okay, what's this guy's theory? What's this guy's why? What's his thing? And you can see the imprints of a Paul Heyman and Michael P.S. Hayes and Bobby Roode and all these guys that are working, going, hey, what about this? What about this layer? What about that? AEW's like, well, we got Ricochet. And Ricochet just go out there and be. It's like, no, you bought the commodity, but you bought it unrefined. The job of the company is to trim the edges and add something good, inject the character into something. And that there has to be some character development in the next 2 years. Otherwise, this company's going to flop. Otherwise, you just have a company full of names. And that's just terrible. You can't have that.
That's kind of what AEW is right now.
It's what it is.
It really is a company full of names. And look, you've got some big names who have refined their abilities, right? Have kind of scratched the surface on what they can be. You look at a guy like a Will Ospreay.
Yep.
Guy goes anywhere, he's going to be over. He has the ability to do that. Kyle Fletcher's a guy who I think is learning, but he's kind of learning at the feet of Will Ospreay. Will Ospreay is kind of taking him underneath his wing. Also, Don Callis working with. Don Callis is a great wrestling mind. But you've got other guys like a Ricochet, who have been on the same scenes as Will Ospreay. And he has never really had the ability to necessarily connect with the fan base. It has always seemed like it's a bit of a struggle. Guy's immensely talented. It's just when it comes to the promos and it comes to getting over your motivation, it always feels forced. It always feels fake, and it feels flimsy. And it just doesn't hit. Just doesn't work. You've got guys like Adam Cole right now, who is in this. I don't know what this is with Kyle O'Reilly, right? Kyle O'Reilly was a big name from Ring of Honor. Kyle O'Reilly was a guy who was at WWE, and Kyle O'Reilly's kind of the same thing, right? He's a guy who's got a ton of talent. He just doesn't ever really seem to get over as much as he's supposed to get over. And Adam Cole is a guy who is completely over, but I still feel like Adam Cole is completely over because of his days in Ring of Honor, where he exceeded everybody's expectations. He took it to WWE, and he did some of those same things, and he got better, but I don't feel like Adam Cole is necessarily where he necessarily needs to be. And now these two guys are in this storyline with MJF, who's a dude who's come in and has completely gotten over. It's just everybody is on this weird level, and it's like you got dudes who basically completely understand what they're doing and what they need to do, and then you've got other guys who are kind of a tweener, and then you've got guys who just like you need to get coached up. And it just, to me, it feels like AEW sometimes drops the ball with some of the guys who are either tweeners or need to be coached up. Like, there are better things you can do with these guys, and you can tell better stories, and you just kind of get some of this stuff. And it's a little bit frustrating, which kind of leads me to what took place at the end of Dynamite and then what took place on Rampage. So Dynamite, we had Mariah May taking on Mira Shirakawa. Pretty good match. It was decent. Mariah May ends up winning at the very, very end. And for some reason, Thunder Rosa's in the crowd, and she's holding up signs. And it almost felt like you were teasing a Thunder Rosa-Mariah May interaction, only to have Toni Storm come back. And Toni Storm has brought her Punk character back. She's no longer Timeless Toni Storm. She comes back as her Punk character, and it looks as though she has her eyes dead set on Mariah May. First off, I want to get your thoughts on her coming back as her Punk character. Was this a good call, or should she have come back maybe as an altered version of the Timeless Toni Storm character? Because the argument could be made that the Timeless Toni Storm character was incredibly over, and it was awesome to see, and she did a fantastic job playing it. She did a really good job when she was doing interviews. She did a really good job in promos with it. The black and white screen that AEW would do for it was a nice touch. There was a lot of really good stuff with the Timeless Toni Storm character. She comes back now as her more punk rock character, And that character, when it debuted, I felt like it was good, and then I felt like it got stale really quick. So is it a good idea to go back to something that you had a while ago and that you're comfortable doing, or would it be better to stay with something that is working? What are your thoughts on how Toni Storm has come back, and what did you make of her just kind of showing up in like the final 15 seconds of Dynamite? Because it just felt like it didn't add. You needed a little bit more. I kind of felt like
exactly, just needed a little bit more. It felt like you could have did vignettes. You could have did something to kind of tease it, or just on a bigger moment, bigger stage. But it's just another thing that AEW does is that they don't do things right with timing of returns. And I disagree a little bit. I like the timeless Toni Storm, but I just don't think that it did what it intended to do. You know what I mean? I guess if you wanted to get over Mariah May, it was fine. But I like the character now, given a chance to kind of get highlighted and move forward. So I think that this version of Toni Storm has a chance to be really special, but it's like one of those deals where if you're going to go back and forth like the man, it's kind of corny. It's like stick to one and get it really, really over for a longer period of time. So we'll see how it progresses, but I don't have a lot of confidence right now that the character is going to get to where it needs to be. Basically, it's like they're not maximizing the juice. They kind of just chop the orange in half, take a little bit of squeeze and go, okay, give me the next orange. It's like, no, you can kind of squeeze it like 6, 7 more times and you'll get a lot of drips out of it. It's like, okay, we're going to another character now in Toni Storm, but we'll see what they do with it. But I do think that her involvement getting back in Mariah May will be intriguing.
Well, here's the thing. So she debuts on Dynamite and they are taping Rampage that same night. You then you have her debut match on Rampage Friday night on a show that is dying. Like Rampage has basically, I think, 2, maybe 3 more episodes left before the show is obsolete. Rampage is a show that regularly struggles for viewership. It does a poor number all the time. You don't necessarily build this up at all because she just shows up on Wednesday night to then have her end up going in wrestling on Rampage. Why would you do that? Like, this is one of your bigger female wrestlers. You should be debuting her on your biggest show, which is Dynamite. And you should have her cutting an awesome promo where she's making her intentions known that she wants to get back at Mariah May. Instead, you're putting it on your B-level, probably actually your C-level show. If you want to consider Collision your B-level show, you're putting it on your C-level show. Why? Why would you do that? Like, that is not how you bring back a star. And this goes more to your point of what you said. They have a really bad time debuting people and getting the push right. Like, what are you doing? It doesn't make any sense. And it sounds like people in AEW, if you listen to Wrestling Observer, it sounds like people in AEW were kind of appalled at this. They were like, what are we doing here? Why are we doing it this way? This doesn't make any sense. At some point, somebody has to be in the room and they have to be able to grab Tony Khan and be like, bro, this is not the way to do this. This is not the best way. Like, I know Bryan Danielson works there and he is part of the creative team. I would assume that he would step up and say, look, we can do better. It doesn't seem like that works. I don't know if Tony just kind of does Tony's own thing. I'm not sure what the hell's going on here. But to me, the way you've brought her back, and this has been a highly anticipated re-debut. People have been looking forward to Toni Storm coming back. This is not the way you do it.
Nope.
And I just don't think it works.
Absolutely. You said it. I could not have said it better myself. Rampage, huh? Okay. And what message does that send to her? Like, come on, why are you putting me on the B show? It's like, I know you potentially are looking to pop as many ratings as possible, but I just think the internet wrestling community got it right on this one. You could have did it so much better.
Yeah, absolutely. Was there anything else from AEW that sticks out to you that caught your eye this week?
I'm definitely curious with MJF and what they're going to do with him moving forward. Always intrigued by, his situation and how he's been in and out and stuff like that. I just feel like, he's kind of one of those characters where you just wish you could do it full time all the time. It feels like when you look at the quarter hours, you look at the ratings and you say, man, you could just position so many guys like this. Like the Jon Moxley stuff is interesting, but I just don't find it to be super appealing to me, in terms of my interest. I definitely want to continue to see, like, basically with AEW is you can sit down and you can like the matches periodically, and they pretty much deliver on matches. But the story, the intrigue could be a lot better. And I just want a couple more stars to kind of be bigger. I want Okada to be bigger. I want Takeshita to be bigger. I want guys like, Cesaro or, whatever his name is now, to be bigger. Claudio Castagnoli to be bigger. You just feel like everybody in that company, if you could just inject them with 25% more overness or more intrigue or more character development, the company could be so much better. But like I said, what I've done is to avoid the angst and the frustration is to just say, enjoy the match. Let's see what happens. Let's see if Tony ever pivots, or are we just going to get this forever and a day? So we'll see what happens moving forward, especially now when you saw the footage of the Dallas press conference with AEW. It didn't look the same. I know they did it on a work day, but they panned to the crowd and looked like there was maybe 200 people in the crowd. It's like you could have did it better there too. Like doing it at a Wednesday at 9 a.m. when people are working is crazy. Like do it like how WWE does it, like at 6 o'clock so people can show up. And you can find the non-casual fan that shows up to hype up your stuff. So we'll see how AEW responds. But the matches have been okay. Dynamite has been okay. But like I said, the one thing that's lacking is character development and story and intrigue. Mm-hmm. And we'll see how the matches go on. But I'm also curious too. Shelton Benjamin's come back. The Hurt Business is doing very well. So we'll see how the things take over as the year ends.
I really do feel like this is a bit of a dark time for AEW. Yeah. We both really want it to succeed. We both want it to be really good. And I feel like a lot of times we come on this show and we bitch a lot about AEW, but we bitch about the same exact things. It's always storylines. It's always character development. It's always things that should get you more interested in what's going on.
And look, there's only one Triple H who's a generational mind. I think that, companies like AEW should have creative minds that take over the book like every 2 years. Like you get a fresh mind, fresh vision, so nobody can, or on a 1 year basis, like, hey, you get the book for a year, get somebody else. And, and if you find the right one, like you get a generational talent like a Triple H, you keep them and they run the book and oversee the operation. But you kind of got to treat it like, Tony can't be the guy that runs the show and creative all the time. Like you need, I think everybody's saying Bully Ray would do a good job. I think, just somebody that's one of the boys, Bully Ray and Tommy Dreamer, bring them in, run the show for 2 years, see what it does, and then you go on, But it kind of does feel like that old, when Dusty Rhodes was running WCW, like back in the 80s, and you're like, you kind of need that Eric Bischoff to come in and just inject some craziness into it. But you got to be careful because if you get, a Vince Russo, then you just fuck everything up and everybody laughs at you. So it's a fine line. And I don't know if Tony Khan will ever break the grip of the creative book, which is crazy because he should, because everyone's telling him that
he's just not good, man.
It's not good enough. Like, it's not good enough.
You're a fan. Compete. You're a mark. Go be a fan. Go be a mark.
Yes.
Don't
input. Sit at you bought the right to sit at the table, but let somebody else run the show and you give your input. That's how it's got to be. He's got to step aside and everybody knows it.
What was your show of the week this week?
Man, it was good. I liked SmackDown. I liked what I saw there, but I thought Raw in and of itself with the Seth Rollins promo was the show of the week with the matches and everything that went down, setting up the feuds for the future.
I agree with you 100%. I thought Raw was absolutely fantastic. I thought SmackDown was good. To me, it felt like SmackDown was more of a place setter for what's going to take place tonight on Saturday night's main event. Dynamite was what Dynamite is, and Collision or Rampage was what Rampage was. So it for me, Raw. You ready for some news and notes?
Hit me with this week's professional wrestling news and notes. What made your list?
So big congratulations to this AEW couple. Lexi Nair and Big Bill got married last weekend. This comes 2 years after their engagement on Christmas Eve in 2022. Announcing the news this past last weekend, Nair shared several images of the pair's special day to her Instagram story. Now, a lot of drama coming out of AEW. Rey Fenix has publicly responded to reports regarding his AEW status amid his lengthy absence from television, with his brother Penta El Zero Miedo now officially gone from AEW following the expiration of his contract. Fenix's future has once again been in the news after the former international champion publicly addressed his status on social media over the weekend. Posting to Twitter, Fenix said that he would one day get the chance to speak the truth regarding his AEW situation, later following up by writing, "No one stays in a place where they receive inhumane treatment." Following Fenix's public comments, Dr. Chris Featherstone of Sportskeeda, who recently had a report out addressing The Rock's WrestleMania status that was backed up as being accurate by Fightful, would post a report to Twitter regarding Fenix's situation, addressing several points he had heard from AEW sources regarding Fenix's status and the Lucha Brothers' time in the company. Featherstone wrote, "I received information from an AEW source on November 20th regarding the Lucha Brothers' status, but did not report it as I was waiting for one of them to begin speaking their mind about the situation. I was told that was coming. I was also told that day that Penta's contract was soon ending with AEW. Rey Fenix did just that, spoke his mind, so here's some intel I've received. The alleged excuse that Tony Khan found out about the Lucha Brothers being in talks with WWE is fake news, and the real reason will be revealed. There is a real story behind the situation with Rey Fenix, which is a huge injustice. Expect the Lucha Brothers to go more in depth about their time in AEW when they are free and clear to do so, and when they do, it's going to be ugly." This led to a response from Fenix himself, who seemingly corroborated much of Featherstone's report, writing via Twitter, "So far, this is the most accurate comments." Before then, once again promising to reveal full details of his situation when he's contractually able to. Unfortunately, due to contractual issues, I cannot speak now, but I will in my time. Later, Fenix tweeted, I needed a doctor, and you ignored me for months." Reports over the summer stated that the Lucha Brothers were set to join WWE when their respective AEW contracts expired. However, Fenix's contract would end up being extended due to injury time accrued. It's unclear when Fenix's deal with AEW will expire, with internal reports suggesting the time added could be around a year. Now, WrestleVotes provided some information on WWE's reaction to Fenix's social media comments on WrestleVotes Radio. Detailing WWE's surprise at Fenix's tweets, WrestleVotes said, "Hearing that there were those in WWE that were surprised yesterday with Rey Fenix's tweet. Not to say that they're not interested anymore. I'm sure that didn't change, but there were some eyebrows raised over those tweets, especially if you're going to put that out there publicly. I think WWE is going to do some digging into what's going on so that the doctor one, my phone started buzzing a little bit afterwards about just the surprise from a few WWE staffers that really didn't have a pulse on what may or may not be going on over there with Rey Fenix. So I just think it raised eyebrows throughout the whole wrestling world, and it did, certainly, in Stamford. Fenix has since deleted all of the tweets regarding his AEW status, with the exception of "I will have my chance to speak my truth," which is still up. All right, switching gears a little bit. We could see a major return to this women's lineup. Per WrestleVotes, the return of Charlotte Flair is reportedly imminent, with it potentially taking place as soon as tonight's Saturday night's main event show on NBC. They tweeted, "Sources indicate that Charlotte Flair's return is imminent, with the possibility of it happening as soon as this weekend on NBC. We're told creative was tasked earlier this week with structuring the presentation of her return. Saturday night's main event will see the final of the Women's United States Championship tournament with Chelsea Green facing off against Meacham. You could possibly see her come out at the end of that to possibly lay down a challenge against Chelsea Green. Who knows? Just kind of throwing it out there. Flair has been out of action for over a year with torn ACL, MCL, and meniscus suffered on SmackDown against Asuka on December 8th, 2023. And finally, fans of Dark Side of the Ring, which airs on Vice, will be happy to know that Season 6 will be starting March 25th, 2025. That's going to do it for this week's wrestling news and notes.
Yep, and the big tease is that potentially Cody Rhodes could debut for one night only the wingtip belt, and I hope that it happens. Also, there's been a tease that potentially WWE could have one major title change that takes place tonight, so I don't think it's going to be Cody Rhodes. I think that would be shocking if Kevin Owens got the opportunity, but stay tuned for Saturday night's main event. It's going to be great. And also, we always highlight podcasts and those that make great appearances. Triple H recently appeared on a podcast episode. So just type in Triple H on YouTube. It'll definitely pop up. The name of the show, escapes me, but you can check social media. Triple H did a great interview, talked about the happenings, the internet wrestling community, the perception of him versus what the reality is, how the business is just getting great numbers just based on the attention it gets on social media, and credits the IWC. So good interview from Triple H. And you recognize that Saturday night's main event is going to be nostalgic with Jesse the Body Ventura getting in on a call in a match or two, and it'll have that nostalgic feel. So go back if you're a fan of wrestling, go on YouTube, watch some of the old Saturday night's main event. A lot of interesting stuff would happen that would move storylines along, that would be intriguing. I do think the match of the night is going to be Kevin Owens and Cody Rhodes. There's going to be a lot of intrigue, maybe a return of a megastar. You never know, but it's Saturday night's main event, and I think we're all about it. Make sure you follow Adam on Twitter at AdamRSTROZ. Follow the network at Detroit Podcast. Anywhere that you listen and enjoy podcasts, just type in Detroit Sports Podcast, and our content will find you. If anything that you heard today you agree or disagree with, let us know. Hit us up. We like your wrestling opinions. We like having online debates. And you guys out there creating fabricated wrestling news, you guys are very funny. The one that I sent you guys regarding Tony Khan's fake statement was hilarious.
That was so funny.
I think that a lot of you guys are very creative, and you could put your talents to use in a good way if you were legitimate. But the internet wrestling community is thriving. It's definitely intriguing. And also, too, cheap plug, check out SI Wrestling. A lot of insights where you get Matt Cardona talking about the failed efforts of Chelsea Green going to GCW for a one-night match. Check it out. SI doing great work. They've kind of entrenched themselves along with other media outlets in wrestling, but a lot of good interviews, inside information. Definitely SI Wrestling. Clearly our relationship with them is strong, but if you just are independent and look at what SI brings in terms of insider information, check it out, because they're doing great work learning and getting contacts and talking to wrestlers, getting interviews, and having I just thought that the Roman Reigns interview with Jimmy Trania on the SI Media podcast was just fantastic. The hour that he spent hyping up War Games was really special. So check out SI Wrestling as well. And also make sure, check out the lineup at Detroit Sports Podcast, Michigan Podcast, DocNJock, all the stuff that you find intriguing in the world of Detroit sports, you'll find on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. I can't wait to fire it up next week. Talk to my guy, the Jock, on the latest episode of the DocNJock Wrestling Podcast.